Thank you. I didn't think my voice was booming quite loud enough. So then after the 20 minutes of Q&A, we'll transition to the next presenter. They'll share for 6 minutes and another 20 minutes of Q&A. One of the best parts about 1 Million Cups is the opportunity to meet afterwards and meet before and network with one another. This is a community that is committed every single week. We have a very high retention rate, return rate. I see business connections, partnerships, marketing allegiances being made here every single week. So I really encourage you guys to get to know the people around you afterwards. And I'm Shay Glennie. I'm one of your organizers. Ron Benzeev is probably going to join us via live stream. He's traveling, promoting his startup. We have David Pancrose over here in the 1 Million Cups t-shirt. And then Nancy Alpers is also one of our organizers. She's actually in Kansas City and Kaufman, where 1 Million Cups started. And she's joining us via live stream. Hey, Nancy, we miss you. 1 Million Cups would not happen without our sponsors. And one of our sponsors, you're sitting in their auditorium right now. So we really appreciate Rollins Center for Advanced Entrepreneurship for hosting us. They give us this beautiful space every single week. It's absolutely incredible. So I really encourage you, if you're not familiar with the Center for Advanced Entrepreneurship, they have great programming, amazing, I'm not sure if there's certification programs, but they certainly have a lot of educational opportunities for the community. So check them out. Please join us on Twitter. Here's our handles. There's our presenters' handles. Go ahead and take a note of those now or take a picture and I'll step out of the way. We primarily use Twitter to kind of talk about, live tweet the event, give sponsors appreciation and love. So please join us in doing that. Also, 1 Million Cups is nothing without coffee. So we're super appreciative of Barney's Coffee Kitchen. There's one location on Park Avenue. There's one location in downtown Orlando. The Park Avenue location does dinners on Thursdays through Sundays, and they are incredible. If you're a foodie, you've got to check out Barney's dinners as well as enjoying their lovely coffee. And then last but not least, we so appreciate Rudy with Joycaster over here. He live streams our events and records them so that there's an archive for every presenter, and you can go back and check those out if there was something you missed or something you want to see. I think that's it. All right, I would like to welcome our first presenter, Darren with CareSpoter. Come on up, Darren. I just want to say Darren is one of our local rockstar entrepreneurs. He is really making waves, and I'm really impressed with the work that he's done. So we're looking forward to his story.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Shay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Darren Wendroff. I'm the founder of CareSpoter. CareSpoter is a website that helps families find senior caregivers. We were recently chosen as the EDC Regional Innovator of the Year, and we were also finalists in the Bright House Regional Business Awards. But before I talk with you about CareSpoter, I want to tell you my story and why I've started the site. And you know, I've told this story before, but this is the first time I'm going to get a little deep into the story and give some more details about it. But in 2012, my mother was diagnosed with stomach cancer, and it came out of nowhere. My mom was super healthy, super vivacious, and everyone was floored. Everyone who knew my mother was extremely floored by what had happened. And on the day that she had gone to the hospital to get her diagnosis, she was actually playing volleyball with her friends like she did every Sunday. So it just came out of nowhere. And I was working in DC at the time. My brother and I had an accounting firm there, and I came back to help her recover after her stomach cancer surgery. And after that week, we needed to find a caregiver for her. After I had been with her for a week, we needed to find a caregiver for her to help her with her daily living. And when we left the hospital, they gave us a list of agencies, but there were no ratings or testimonials, and there was no way of knowing which were the good agencies and which we should avoid. So, and when I contacted the agency, I wasn't able to speak to the caregivers before they sent them to my mom's home. Now, my mom was the most special person in my life, the essential person. Like, she's my hero. And, you know, I just can't describe the pain of seeing your loved one so vulnerable and being so helpless. And if you've ever been a caregiver, you know what that pain is like. And if you haven't been a caregiver, you know, it's really, I think it's impossible to understand that pain because it's such a deep personal pain. So I left my company, we couldn't find a caregiver, and I left my company and I took care of my mom full time. And you know, I just don't understand how some people do it, because there's no way I could have worked full time and took care of my mother the way she needed to be taken care of. It just would have been, I don't know how I could have done it. I don't know how people do it. CareSpoter talks with caregivers all the time, working caregivers, and this is a quote from a recent survey, and I'm just going to read the first line. "It was torture being tied to my desk all day while my dad was dying of cancer." And this happens to people, millions of people across the country all the time. Working caregivers suffer in silence because when you're having a baby, everybody understands that. It's a moment for celebration. But when you're caring for a loved one, it's complex. People don't really understand it. It happens suddenly, and people don't want to talk about it in the workplace. It's a difficult thing. This happens to millions of Americans, and it's becoming a critical growing issue. This graph shows America's population growth between 1970 and the year 2030. Every day, more than 10 million Americans turn 65, and by the year 2030, 1 in every 5 people will be age 65 or older. Researchers call this a 2030 problem, and the reason being are the 100 million Americans aged 30 to 50 who will need to care for their children and take care of their parents and work a full-time job. This costs companies $33 billion annually in the lost productivity of full-time employed caregivers. That includes absenteeism, presenteeism, and turnover. Now, at least 1 in every 5 people in a company are caring for a senior loved one, and 90% of companies expect this number to go up. Here's some interesting statistics. Almost 1/3 of caregivers quit their job or retire early, and 1 in every 3 working female caregivers gives up a job promotion, training, or assignment. And 50% of caregivers report 8 additional healthcare visits a year just for themselves. Caregiving is extremely taxing for caring for a loved one. In Florida, this is a tremendously pertinent issue. 55% of our population growth over the next 16 years will be due to seniors moving to the state, and by the year 2030, almost 1 in every 3 Floridians will be age 65 or older. You know, as we speak, there are Buick LeSabres and Cadillacs careening across the country towards Florida, and I think everybody's aware of that. I mean, it's December, and it's like, what, 65 degrees outside, so you know this is where the seniors are moving. So how does CareSpoter address that? Well, CareSpoter is a site that makes it extremely simple to find a local professional caregiver. You just go to CareSpoter, put in your zip code, hit enter, and instantly you're connected with hundreds of local professional caregivers. They've all been background checked. You can search by how much they charge an hour, by how many years experience they have. You can see how far they live away from you. You can also search by using more than 150 search criteria, such as language, experience with a medical condition, even hobbies or interests. Then we take the caregivers and we have a way to then create an elegant, beautifully designed profile, the LinkedIn for caregivers. You can see their schedule, you can see what services they offer, and most importantly, you can get a feel for who they are as a caregiver, if they're the right caregiver for your loved one. So CareSpoter launched in February this year. We've approved more than 800, we've had more than 800 caregivers apply. We've approved about 500 caregivers. We've helped 120 families find an amazing caregiver. We've created more than 130 high-paying care jobs. Families are saving about 40 to 50% using CareSpoter versus an agency, and caregivers are making 30 to 40% more. In almost every situation, we've improved patient outcomes, and we've even prevented hospitalizations in some situations. So what I'm really proud to announce today, though, is CareSpoter is launching a free workplace caregiver solution program. And this is a free turnkey program for companies that want to support their working caregivers in their workplace. The way this works is it's a series of webinars that we give at the company, 6 to 7 webinars, and they're informational webinars about caregiving. They include topics such as strategies for working caregivers, 10 ways to pay for elder care services. We also do a managerial training to create a caregiver-friendly workplace. CareSpoter also does monthly newsletters with working caregiver strategy and tips. We also do workplace surveys to help companies determine what the impact caregiving is having on their workplace. And the program also includes an exclusive 50% discount on CareSpoter services. These webinars will be taught by national experts on caregiving and aging, and what we're trying to do is really unique. We're really trying to help these people who are suffering in silence, working caregivers, and bring the conversation out in the open. So this is really important because right now when someone's in the workplace, there is nothing that is there. So CareSpoter is creating a free turnkey solution for companies to provide resources to these the working caregivers, and not just caregivers who are suddenly hit with caregiving like with what happened to my family, but also people who know that they're going to need to care for their loved ones in the future and they don't know how to approach that. So CareSpoter looks to begin that conversation. What we're looking for, you know, if you can help us out, is we're just looking to connect with companies. If your own company would like a program like this, or if you know of a company that you think would benefit from a program like this, please let me know. You know, we'd love to connect with those companies. And there's my information. Thank you very much.
If you have questions, if you would please just raise your hand so we can bring the mic to you. That way, I'll be right back. That way we can catch it on the recording and live stream.
I just wanted to know how your mom's doing.
Yeah, it's a shame that we have to give these presentations so quick. My mom passed. She passed within 2 months. Yeah, it was, and it's something, that's a special conversation as well. I sometimes get asked that question, and it's something I'd be happy to talk with you afterwards. Anyone who's ever lost a loved one knows what that feels like, but it's it's something. And I remember I just share this one thing. In hospice, they told us they see this happen all the time, that someone who's so healthy, when it hits them, they go quick. And the reason being is because their whole life they've been healthy. And my mom was like that. Her whole life she was healthy. So, it's a personal thing. It's a blessing in some ways. Not her passing, of course, but the way that it happened. But, it's...
Well, you're a great son.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, she was an amazing mother. Really an amazing person. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
How are you, Darren? My wife and I have been caregiving for 10 years. We have a mother-in-law that lives with us, and we've used a number of the different agencies that are out there. So essentially at this point, it's been touch and go with every type of person that's been in the door because we can't really vet them out.
Yeah.
So does your service help people like us find what might equate to better caregivers?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Would your service help people like us find better caregivers than we might have now?
Yeah, because the thing is, with an agency, you contract an agency and they choose your caregiver for you based on what the information you've given them. But no one vets that caregiver better than you do. You know your loved one. So on CareSpoter, you choose your own caregiver. I think we have 240 caregivers in Orlando, 250. So if you go to CareSpoter, you can see their profiles, you can read about them, you can see their pictures. That's really what lets you know initially, like, is this the right caregiver for our loved one?
So I was on your website, and it's very attractive, but how do you work out the details, such as if we have some long-term care payments that come in, payments that are made directly to the agency? How would that administratively, how does that work with your organization?
Well, CareSpoter is a direct pay model, so you would directly pay the caregiver. Sometimes people work with agencies through long-term care, but then they'll bring in a caregiver through CareSpoter 1 or 2 days a week and pay them directly. We don't work with insurance right now. Florida Blue is our major investor and partner, and they're considering insuring CareSpoter caregivers, but we don't have a mechanism to do that yet, so you would pay the caregiver directly. That said, an agency is what, 20 to 30 an hour. Caregivers on CareSpoter are usually 12 to 15 an hour. So they're much less. Plus, in agency, caregivers only get paid $8 to $9 an hour. Through CareSpoter, they're making 12 to 15 an hour. So you're not, it's kind of exploitative what happens to caregivers through agencies.
Okay, so we can talk more about this when you're done, or by email, or however.
Yeah, sure, of course. Oh, yeah. No, with CareSpoter, we help out every family through the search of finding a caregiver as well. We act as geriatric care managers, and as we grow, that's what we ultimately want to do, is be a navigator for you through this process.
All right, thank you very much.
And actually, Darren, great presentation. I don't know if everybody knows that Darren was one of our, is an alum of 1 Million Cups. Was here fairly early on. I don't know if you mentioned that, Shay, before, but I love to see the evolution of where you came from earlier, and I can really see the maturity coming out in your presentation and everything. But could you tell us more about the working caregiver program? And you said it's free. It just seems like you're giving a lot away for free in that program. And
yeah,
kind of
so we originally we were working with Florida Blue to create this program, and originally we were going to charge for it, but Florida Blue had said, the companies we work with, they don't have the resources to do this, to pay for this kind of service, and there are a few programs in the country that do this. There's not many, a working caregiver solution program, but they charge for it. So what we did was we designed a program that's free, and the way we did that is it's webinar based. And it's even better in some cases for it to be webinar-based because employees can access it from any platform, their mobile phone, tablet. It's a lunch and learn webinar series. And I've done hundreds of webinars when I was at Wendroff CPA, our old accounting firm. We're very good at this. It's a presentation, and then it's a Q&A with the expert that we're presenting with. So if we're presenting with Dr. Jamie Heisman, who's a national renowned expert on caregiving, he would give a presentation on strategies for working caregivers, and then it'd be a 30-minute Q&A with Dr. Heisman. So it's a free solution. That's how we were able to do it free, and that's how we were able to scale. We're able to scale the solution because it's webinar-based. And the function of this webinar series is not only to provide immediate resources to people who are caregiving for a loved one, but also begin the conversation for people who know down the road they'll need to be caring for a loved one. Because in the workplace, everybody knows this is happening. Everybody in this room knows this is happening. It's either happened to you, or it's happening to you, or you know someone who it's happening to. But no one knows how to address it. Even nationally, they're trying to figure out how to address it. So what we've designed is a free turnkey way to begin that conversation in the workplace, where I think it's really important.
Thank you. Darren, thank you. Great concept, great company, and I appreciate that you're bringing up a subject that people my age can start planning for that, because I think we think our parents are invincible as we're growing up, and it's hard to see when something like this hits them. I guess the question I have for you is, what are your plans for scaling this company? You've talked a little bit about dealing with individuals, but then you've also talked about dealing with workplaces. If you could just talk about how you plan on scaling the company and what your main targets are going to be.
Yeah. So CareSpoter is currently going through a major redesign. We're going to launch that at the end of this year. Hopefully next year we'll be able to come back and show that redesign, because it is amazing. It'll be mobile. You'll be able to use it on a mobile platform. We're redesigning the profiles. So now the caregiver doesn't just write about themselves like you would on LinkedIn. The profile is actually an interview of the caregiver. So why did you become a caregiver? What makes you a great caregiver? What are your hobbies and interests outside of work? So that's the redesign. It's going to also include mobile payments, so you can pay the caregiver through the site, and we'll handle the taxes for you, the W-2, and the unemployment insurance for the caregiver. So scaling it, though, the site will become more platform-based at that point. CareSpoter, what it plans to do is create this platform where caregivers can create these profiles, like LinkedIn-style profiles, so you can know who's out there before you hire the caregiver. Right now, with the agencies, you're kind of going into it blind. With CareSpoter, you can see who these caregivers are, and if you think there's a connection, you can contact them. The part that we're going to start developing is the geriatric care manager part, where CareSpoter becomes a team of geriatric care managers, professional senior advisors that can help navigate you through that process. And to scale it, we're launching right now. We're already in Orlando. We're in several states, Boston, New York, and several cities throughout Florida. But the redesign is going to be, if you search for a caregiver in a city that we're not at already, we will help you find that caregiver for free. We'll give you a free subscription to CareSpoter, and you will launch you will launch CareSpoter in your city by doing that. So it's going to be a totally scalable platform at that point. Thank you.
Darren, I've got a question for you. Is this solution only good for large enterprises, or even like the small business community to bring to their employees?
So this CareSpoter solution is mostly for companies 100 employees and up. If you're a smaller company, we can still make you part of the process. It just probably won't be as customized. It'll be more a la carte. We're still trying to figure out how to work more effectively with smaller companies. I think we'll make it a la carte. So we have that workplace survey to help you determine how caregiving is affecting your workplace, and we have the newsletters. But the service, when it's for larger companies, is more personalized. But it is open to any company that wants to be part of it.
Morning, Darren. How you doing?
Hi.
I was a caregiver for my mother, and I'm a caregiver for my mother-in-law. I just hope that someday somebody will care for me as well. Of course, if you're a fan of Benny Hill, you'll know how that turned out. Two questions. First of all, my mother-in-law, she's Japanese, so she doesn't speak much English.
Yeah.
So finding somebody that speaks Japanese has just been slim to none. That's one thing. The other thing is you mentioned that we pay $12 to $15 an hour, and then they make $12 to $15 an hour. So where do you make your money?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. So CareSpoter, the way it's going to work is you pay a subscription to use CareSpoter, a job posting fee. And right now it's either $100 or $400. $100 if it's a la carte, if you want to find a caregiver on your own. It's $400 if you want to have a geriatric care manager help you through the process. then that money becomes, when the redesign comes out and the payment comes out, that money is going to become a credit that you pay the caregivers with through the online payment platform. We are going to charge a payment processing fee on top of the caregiver's fee. So it'll be about 20%. So if the caregiver makes $13 an hour, it'll be another $260, so it'll be $15.60. So now it will go up. Caregiver fees will probably go up to $17.50 because we've seen at the highest it's $15 an hour, but still $17.50 is still less than what the agency's charging, and that's at the highest caregiver fee. Usually caregivers are charging around $13 to $14 an hour, so you're probably looking at $15 to $16 an hour, $15 to $17 an hour is paying the caregiver. But we are going to charge a payment processing fee to handle the tax payments between you and the caregiver, or the payments between you and the caregiver. What we've just this model, what we've based it on is what Lyft and Uber does. We want to make it a very turnkey push-button solution, but at the same time, we're working to keep the rates as reasonable as possible, because what we see is if you provide really great service and your rates are reasonable, people like systems like that. They're very turnkey. So that's how we're designing this system as well.
Well, and one question I had along that same line is what's to stop people from circumventing your system and finding a caregiver and then just paying them directly on the side to avoid your payment processing fee?
Yeah, they could do that. They could do that. That's fine. You do pay the posting fee, and then you can either use that credit or not use that credit. But if people choose to pay the caregiver directly, they're more than welcome to do that. They're not going to have the tax payments handled, the unemployment insurance, so it behooves the caregiver and the family to work through that process. Also, every hour that the caregiver works on the site through that payment process shows up on their profile, so it helps them as they develop as a professional caregiver on the site. But they can go around the site if they choose to.
As you know, from when you have a caregiver at home, you also have other people that need to be involved, like doctors, skilled nursing, and other specialists that may come in for a couple hours a week, or maybe 1 hour a week, or once every couple weeks. Do you have a setup on your site where you can also contract those people to come in? The specialists or the people, maybe that person can't go, can't be moved or something. They're in bed or.
Yeah, right now we don't have that functionality. We've had situations where we've had licensed massage therapists on CareSpoter. We've had LPNs and some RNs on CareSpoter. So we do have some high-end professionals on CareSpoter, but we don't work with some of the other very specific medical healthcare professionals. As we grow, we may move in that direction. Now, one thing about having other people come and work with your loved one, CareSpoter right now has the ability that you can, the caregiver can write notes on your loved one that can be sent out to family members who live out of state, or if you have another professional come in. We're gonna, with the redesign, we're gonna pull back that function for a bit, but then we're gonna re-release it. But that's a way that you can continue keeping professionals that come to work with your loved one updated on that loved one's status through the eyes of the caregiver.
Darren, another question. When we hire these caregivers, are they construed as independent contractors or are they employees?
Yes, so you can hire them as independent contractors. Legally, if you work with them for more than 20 hours a week, they're considered household employees, just like a nanny would be. But in this profession, people have been paying caregivers directly as independent contractors forever. The government and the IRS knows it's a tremendous issue. As an accounting firm, we've never seen anyone come down on caregivers. But as this issue grows, I think it's just like the nanny issue moved towards household employees, they're going to move towards regulating this more strictly.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Darren, for the aspiring entrepreneurs in here, you had some pretty awesome strategic partners up on one of your slides.
Oh, uh-huh.
Can you share a little bit about how you as an entrepreneur CEO formed some of those partnerships, like up there with your team?
No, that was crazy. Like any entrepreneur will tell you, you don't know how you did it. You just did it, it's an interesting story. When I first came up with the idea, I went to a friend who had designed sites for Amazon. He owned a huge company called Intridia, which is one of the largest Ruby companies in the world. He's been a client of Wendroff CPA, our old accounting firm. And I said, hey, I have this idea. He said, that's an amazing idea. That's awesome. Yes, do it. This is great. And I said, well, how much would it cost to build the site? And he said, probably between 300 and 500,000. And I said, yeah. I said, I will talk to you later. So he's like, you just have to talk to some VCs. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So So then the next week I found out about Startup Weekend. It's a shame Ron's not here because Ron was there at the very beginning. But we was in Startup Weekend and we presented the idea to the room and we were the number 1 or 2 vote getter in terms of people saying this is a great idea. But then when we pitched to the room to get team members, we only had 1 person on my team. Like only 1, and every team had like 8 to 9 people. And I was asking people, I was like, could really use some help. And they're like, yeah, we love the idea, but it's just not sexy. I just want to build something sexy. And it's the truth. Caregiving is not sexy. So we presented that week, and we focused on one thing that we could do very well, which was the presentation, and we ended up winning 2nd place at Startup Weekend. And then from there, it really gave me a lot of encouragement because I was going to stop after that weekend if we couldn't build, do what we needed to do. So from there, I applied to Y Combinator, several other really big accelerators. I didn't think I was going to get in, but I just wanted to see how far we could get. We had some interviews, which was great. Then we got into something called Starter Studio. A lot of you probably know it, a local accelerator, and we got accepted into that. And then we also got an interview for HealthBox, which is a national, probably the top healthcare accelerator in the world. They're in Israel, Ireland, London. They're throughout the country. And we interviewed with them. I remember then in the interview, I told my co-founder, Kyle Sivs, I said, Kyle, man, I really feel bad. I'm sorry I messed up that interview. And he was just like, it's all right, it's all right. And then we got into Starter Studio, and then I called up HealthBox. I emailed them and said, hey, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. We'll apply again next year. And they called me up immediately and said, you got in. What are you talking about? It's like, we were going to call you next week. And so maybe I got in or not. But yeah, we ended up getting into HealthBox. And through there, we built a partnership with Florida Blue. And Florida Blue is interesting. I've really learned how to work with huge organizations, and we built that partnership with them. And you learn as you go along. But what I think I've tried to do is be more and more passionate about my story. It's a very personal story. This is the first time I've ever really explained it in more detail than I have in the past. And the reason being is because I didn't want to use my experience with my mom as a commodity to sell CareSpoter. I never want to do that. It's a very personal experience. But this is an issue that happens everywhere. Just like in this room, people are talking about caregiving, and anyone who's done it knows what a important issue it is. So it's important that I do talk about this very openly, and I'm very passionate about it. And I think that's helped us get these partnerships because large organizations or very important people in the industry know of this issue, and they know what we're doing, and they've seen the progress we made, just like Dave spoke about. And I think that's making a difference. People are starting to support us because they see that we're serious and we're pragmatic about how we're doing it. And we're building partnerships as we grow.
I'm sorry. We're going to have to wrap up questions for now, but guys, grab Darren afterwards and ask him some more questions. You did such a great presentation. Thank you so very much. Final question.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Shay.
What can we as a community do for you right now, today, to help you break through maybe your most pressing hurdle or barrier?
Yeah, so if you know of a company or you work at a company you think would benefit from this program, we'd love to speak with the HR at the company or some of the CEO or the founder to bring the program into the company. And also, if you know of someone who needs a caregiver who's struggling with this, please recommend CareSpoter. It's just CareSpoter.com.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we're going to roll into